The Blackhawks are looking for their first regular season win in Philadelphia since November of '96. But after 20 minutes of action on Wednesday night rivalry, we have a 0-0 game. Welcome to the Lexington Intermission Report. Liam McHugh alongside Bob McKenzie. Mike Milbury and Keith Jones will join us in a bit. The Hawks, they're the reigning champs. As for the Flyers, they were playoff spectators last year. It was a fact that didn't sit very well with owner Ed Snyder, who in late March, when his team's fate was becoming quite clear, told reporters, quote, "You don't say when you've got Giroux and you've got Voracek and you've got Mason and you've got the kind of pieces like Simmons that we have that, hey, you've got to be patient. We might make the playoffs in 2 or 3 years." Bleep that. So no real ambiguity on where he stood on that situation. He pointed out what GM Ron Hextall has potentially working for him as they try to make a push to be a playoff contender. What's working against him?
Well, I think Ron Hextall is doing a really good job under the circumstances, and they are difficult circumstances because you have an owner and a fan base and an entire city who won't let you say the R word, which is rebuild, which is really what the Philadelphia Flyers are, in a manner of speaking, doing. The number one thing working against them right now is financial handcuffs. The fact that the Philadelphia Flyers have made some bad decisions on the contract front. On the outgoing tenure of general manager Paul Holmgren, did a series of things. Had that Ilya Bryzgalov contract. They bought him out on June 25th. Days later, they signed Vinny Lecavalier to a deal that's becoming a short-term albatross right now. You got the Andrew McDonald deal in that same season, the 13-14 season, 6 years, $30 million. He's in the minors. All sorts of dead cap space. So even if Ron Hextall wanted to rebuild, even if he wanted to bring in a whole bunch of people and put them on the blue line right now to improve the team, because that is the weak part of the team, he can't really do that because of the financial handcuffs. So what does he do? He trades Chris Pronger's money away to Phoenix. He brings in Sam Gagner, not because I think he loves Sam Gagner, but because it expedited the Pronger financial situation. R.J. Umberger, another case. They brought him in solely because Scott Hartnell's deal went a year longer. So they're trying to find ways to ease the financial pain over time. And while they're doing that, try to do their best to stock the cupboard with young players.
Well, let's start right there, because of that graphic, it showed older players, money perhaps not well spent at all. If you're inclined to look to the future, to look to the young guys, how do they look in that regard?
I think it looks really bright. The number one weakness on this team, when you look at the Philadelphia Flyers, you see star players up front, you see Giroux, you see Voracek, you see Simmons, and you see credible goaltending in Mason. You see what Ed Snyder saw when he said, bleep that, about rebuilding. But when you look at the minors and the drafts or back in junior hockey, Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, Samuel Morin, Robert Hogg, Shane Gostisbehere. There's 5 or 6 really good young defensemen that are going to be on the Philadelphia Flyer blue line over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. But Hextall has basically, he's forced to keep them down because of some of the financial considerations, but he's also protecting those kids because he wants to make sure they develop properly and that he brings them in. The key in the short term is don't do any more deals that are going to get you into financial difficulty. Allow those kids to develop. Travis Konecny, a forward they got in the last draft. Lots of really good prospects. The Flyers are doing a good job of drafting and developing. Guess what? Don't tell anybody, but they're kind of rebuilding. Nobody's paid attention, though, and right now they're caught in that soft middle ground. They're not a contending team.
Well, do they feel like they could steal an 8 seed here?
You never know, but I mean, when you look at the Philadelphia Flyers, as I said, pretty good at the top end of their up-front situation with Giroux and Voracek and Simmons. Not so good on the blue line at all. Incredible net mining in between. I'd be shocked if they made the playoffs, but it's possible, I guess. But in the grand scheme of things, are they a contending team? No. Could they be a contending team in 4 or 5 years? Giroux and Voracek and Simmons and all those guys will still be young enough, and all those kids that I just mentioned will be in the National Hockey League, and they look like pretty good players.